It started with a password. He texted it to me the morning he left. A long string of letters and numbers with a little smiley face at the end. "Just in case," he wrote, "so you can check the house while I'm gone. Miss you already." There was no part of that message I deserved. Daniel had never been the jealous type. He didn't go through my phone. He didn't ask where I was every hour. He trusted me, which, looking back, was probably the cruelest part. Because I didn't earn it. I abused it. He was going out of town for 3 nights, a work thing he couldn't get out of, sales conference, some hotel by the airport, lots of suits and fake enthusiasm. I wasn't going because of work. That was the story. The truth was, I wanted to be alone. Or more specifically, I wanted to not be watched. That's when the cameras became a problem. We'd installed them after a break-in on our street. One in the living room, one outside by the garage, one in the kitchen pointing at the back door. Nothing crazy. Just security. Just peace of mind. But now I could feel them. Their tiny black eyes blinking in corners, capturing every movement, every shift of light. And even though Daniel wouldn't be sitting in his hotel room obsessively checking the feed, I knew the footage would be there. Waiting. I didn't want to lie. That's a lie. I didn't want to get caught. So I opened the app on my phone. I stared at the 3 glowing camera icons. I hovered my thumb over the disable option. It would send a notification, unless I went in through the settings and put the device in test mode. That way, it wouldn't alert him. Just a technical blip. Nothing strange. I disabled the one in the living room, left the others on. That was my version of honesty. Because I wasn't planning on bringing anyone into the kitchen. I wasn't planning on touching anyone in view of the back door. Just the couch. Just that one stretch of space. That familiar, stupid, soft gray couch we picked out together at a warehouse sale 4 years ago. The one he napped on. The one he laid on while we watched Netflix. The one where I let another man put his hands on me and didn't feel anything close to regret. His name was Cole. We met through work. Not mine, Daniel's. A supplier rep. Someone I'd shaken hands with at a company party months before. There was nothing in that first meeting. No spark, no flirting. Just eye contact. Strong. A little too long. The kind of look that lingers in your chest for reasons you don't understand. He messaged me on LinkedIn after. Nothing inappropriate. Just a compliment on my presentation. Something vague and professional and perfectly deniable. And I responded. That's how it started. With compliments that weren't compliments. With check-ins that didn't feel like check-ins. With jokes about stress, about marriages, about what we wanted that we weren't getting. The first time we crossed a line, it was emotional. That sounds stupid, but it's true. He made me feel seen, not loved, not adored. Just noticed. And I didn't realize how much I missed that until I got it back. I wasn't planning to invite him over. But I told him Daniel was going out of town. And I said, "It's weird being alone in this house." And he said, "Want company?" And I said yes. The night Daniel left, I cooked dinner like nothing was different. Watched one episode of a show we'd been binging together, texted him a picture of the dog curled up on the couch, sent hearts, said love you. Then I opened the door for another man and led him into a space Daniel had built for us, protected with cameras, offered to me with a password I didn't deserve. And I smiled, because the part of me that used to hesitate was long gone. He didn't even ask about the cameras. Cole walked in like he'd been there before, like this was already routine, like he didn't have to wonder if I'd changed my mind. He took off his shoes without asking, dropped his jacket on the back of the chair, looked around the living room with that same faint amusement he always carried, like nothing in the world could really surprise him anymore. And maybe it couldn't. I poured 2 glasses of wine. Not because I wanted it. I was already lightheaded, already burning, but because it made it feel normal. Social. Like we weren't standing in the center of a life I was setting on fire. I don't remember exactly what we talked about. Work, probably. The flight he had next week. The traffic. We stood too close in the kitchen. He leaned his hip against the counter. I laughed at something he said that wasn't funny. I stepped away to grab napkins, even though we didn't need them. My hands were shaking. He followed me into the living room. Sat down first. Stretched his arms across the back of the couch like he was claiming it. I stayed standing for a second, watching him, wondering what I looked like in that moment. If anyone watching would have known. If I looked nervous. If I looked guilty. If I looked like a woman who had already made her decision. He said, "You okay?" I nodded. Then I sat down beside him. His hand moved to my leg. Slow. Just resting there. I didn't stop it. My breath caught, but I didn't pull away. I looked down at the floor, the carpet we picked out together, and for a split second I thought, turn the camera back on. But I didn't. Because I didn't want a record of what was about to happen. Cole leaned in. His mouth found mine with no hesitation. It wasn't tender. It wasn't sweet. It was immediate. I opened for him. My body moved before my mind caught up. His hands slid under my shirt, under the fabric of who I was supposed to be, and I let them. I kissed him harder, pulled him closer, felt the shape of him pressed against me and wanted more. I forgot the room, forgot the wine, forgot the man who trusted me enough to give me the key to this moment. Everything slowed down and collapsed in. There was only breath, skin, friction. I felt him move against me and I matched it, hips tilting, spine arching, teeth grazing. I made sounds I hadn't made in years. I whispered things I didn't mean. I opened every part of myself like a door I thought I'd locked long ago. It didn't last long, maybe 10 minutes. But it felt longer, fuller, heavier. After I sat back on the couch, shirt twisted, chest heaving, sweat cooling on my skin. I didn't look at him. I just stared at the dark square of the television, reflecting both of us in broken fragments. Cole stood, adjusted his shirt, ran a hand through his hair. He didn't say much. He never did. Just picked up his jacket and walked toward the door like this was just another room he'd passed through. I followed him. My legs felt hollow. He turned at the door and kissed me again. Softer this time. Almost gentle. Then he left. And the house was quiet again. I walked to the camera app, tapped once, re-enabled the feed. 3 green icons. Nothing missing. Nothing suspicious. Nothing he could prove. But I could still smell him on my skin. And no amount of fake silence could unhear what I'd let happen in that space. He checked them the next morning. I knew he would. I was already at work when I got the text. Camera caught the dog barking at the trash pickup. Nothing else. All quiet. I stared at the screen. My fingers locked around the phone. I felt the slow drop of blood in my limbs. Not fear, not relief, just cold. I texted back, "Told you we'd survive without you." And that was it. He didn't press. He didn't ask why the living room camera glitched for 10 minutes, because it hadn't. Not in any way he could prove. There was no missing footage, no error logs, no red flags. The app just showed time passing, uninterrupted, uneventful, safe. That's what made it worse. He FaceTimed me that night, called me from his hotel room, hair wet from the shower, t-shirt wrinkled, voice low like he didn't want to wake his roommate. He said he missed me. Said the hotel smelled like lemon-scented plastic. Said he couldn't wait to come home. I smiled at the screen. My face looked normal. My voice was steady. I told him I missed him too. That the dog was being weird. That I couldn't sleep without him next to me. That I'd made pasta for one and it tasted lonely. He looked so happy to hear it. And all I could think about was Cole's hands still echoing in my bones. The next day, Daniel sent me a link to a funny clip the front door camera had picked up. A squirrel leaping from the fence and landing straight into the recycling bin. We laughed about it, shared it with friends. He told me he loved having the system installed. Said it gave him peace of mind. I didn't respond to that. Because what do you say when the thing he trusts most is what you've already used against him? I started to hate the living room. Hated walking through it. Hated the way the couch still remembered. Hated the silence that bloomed in that space whenever I was alone. I couldn't sit in it anymore. Couldn't curl up the way I used to. Every cushion felt like a witness. Every throw pillow looked like judgment. I washed the blankets, vacuumed the rug twice, lit a candle, but the air still held it. Daniel came home the next evening. I met him at the door, smiled, hugged him a little too tightly. He held me longer than usual, breathing into my neck, sighing like he'd been waiting days just to land again. I kissed him and told him dinner was almost ready. He looked around the house and said, "Everything looks exactly how I left it." And it did, because I'd made sure of that. Over dinner, he asked if I remembered to water the plants, if the neighbors had dropped off our mail, if I'd had any time to relax. I answered each question like a good wife, like a woman who'd missed her husband, like someone who hadn't reset the security app 2 minutes before letting someone else into her bed. Later that night, he asked if we could watch something together on the couch. I said yes. I sat there next to him, knees touching, heart pounding, staring at the same TV that had reflected my body bent beneath someone else. His hand brushed mine. He kissed my shoulder. He thanked me for keeping the house safe. And I said, of course. Because that's what I'd done. Kept it safe. From everything but me. It didn't come right away. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. And still, nothing. No accusations, no weird questions, no subtle comments. He was kind, normal, sweet. He kissed me every morning before work and texted me in the afternoons just to say hi. At night, we lay in bed and talked about stupid things, what to do for the holidays, whether we should repaint the guest room. It was unbearable, because I couldn't stop waiting. Every laugh felt borrowed. Every touch felt like a lie. I couldn't look at him for more than a few seconds without my stomach flipping over itself. And still, I smiled. I joked. I kissed him back. I wanted him to know. I wanted him to stay blind. Both truths sat in my mouth like teeth grinding each other down. It happened one night in the kitchen. We weren't fighting. We weren't even talking about anything heavy. I was chopping vegetables. He was leaning against the counter with a beer in his hand. Something stupid was playing on the radio. Old 90s pop, too upbeat for the mood in my chest. He said, "Can I ask you something?" I didn't look up. Of course. He paused. I could feel it before I heard it. The shift. The silence that's not quiet, but loaded. That weekend I was gone. Did anything happen? The knife stopped in my hand. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stared down at the onion, half sliced, skin curling like something peeling away from itself. What do you mean? I could hear my voice, calm, practiced, detached. He didn't answer right away, just said softly, I don't know. Something feels different. With you. With us. I turned slowly, forcing a smile, holding the knife like it grounded me. Daniel, nothing happened. You're just tired. You've been working so much. We're fine. His eyes met mine. And that was it. That was the moment. Because he didn't blink. Didn't argue. Just looked. And I knew what he saw. Not guilt, not confession, but distance. A space I couldn't close fast enough. He said, "You turned off the living room camera." I froze. My throat clenched. He kept his voice even. "You didn't think I'd notice, but I checked the network history. I saw the device go into test mode." My lips parted. I didn't speak. He waited, and then he nodded. Once. Slow. Final. That's all I needed to know. I reached for him, dropped the knife, stepped forward. "Daniel." He pulled back gently. Not cruel, just done. I don't need details. I don't want to know who or how or where. I just wanted to know if my gut was right. Tears burned at the edge of my eyes, but he didn't look away. His calm was worse than yelling. He wasn't angry. He was confirming a death. "You lied to me," he said, "and then you used technology to make me doubt my own senses." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I looked at the footage and told myself I was being crazy. He continued, "Because everything looked normal. Because I wanted to believe you more than I trusted myself." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I know." He left the room. Didn't pack. Didn't leave the house. Just went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and didn't speak to me for 2 days. He didn't move out. Not right away. Not even after the silence. He slept in the guest room. He came home on time. He emptied the dishwasher, folded the laundry, walked the dog. We lived together the way strangers live in hotels. Polite, brief, careful not to touch anything. He didn't bring it up again. And I didn't try. I thought that would be worse. The silence. But it was the stillness that killed me. Because Daniel didn't punish me. He just removed himself. Emotionally, spiritually, intimately. I'd walk into a room and feel him pull back without moving. I'd reach for a cup and his hand would pause an inch too long before offering it. He wasn't angry. He was gone. And I was still there. One morning I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee I didn't want. The camera light blinked steadily in the corner. Green, online, recording. I stared at it and tried to remember what it had seen, and what it hadn't. I thought about deleting the app, about throwing away the entire system. But I didn't. Because now the cameras were the only things left in the house that still saw me for who I really was. Daniel passed behind me. Didn't say anything. I heard him leave through the garage. The beep of the door. The soft click. I didn't get up. Later that week, he texted me from work. Just a grocery list. He wrote, "We're out of milk. Can you grab some?" No, hi. No, love you. No emoji. Just facts. And somehow that hit harder than any accusation ever could. I started dreaming of Cole. Not the nights we were together, but the silence after. His footsteps on the floor, the soft click of the door closing behind him. The emptiness, The part where I sat alone and knew even then that it wouldn't stay secret forever. I wanted to text him, to tell him what happened, to blame him, to apologize. But I didn't. Because this wasn't about him. Not really. It was about me. About how easy it was to lie. How simple it was to smile while dismantling something sacred. How I told myself that if Daniel never found out, it wouldn't count. And how that logic crumbled the second I saw his eyes go still. He didn't yell, but he never looked at me the same again. Weeks passed. We had dinner once together at the table. We ate quietly. I asked about his day. He answered. I smiled. He didn't. The moment passed. I went to bed alone that night, even though the door to our room was open. He was inside. I wasn't invited in. And then one night, weeks later, he sat across from me and said, I'm not asking for anything. I'm not leaving yet. I just want you to know that I know. I nodded, and he said, You can keep pretending, but I won't. That was the last real conversation we had. Now he sleeps on one side of the house. I sleep on the other. The house is quiet. The cameras are on. And I haven't touched the couch in weeks.